Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Social Media Help Desk here at KWSM. I'm Stephen Wagner, and I'm joined by Layla on my left and Alexandra on my right. And we are super excited to be here, and I hope that you guys all had a great weekend. Super Bowl is this weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know a lot of people are saying it in a really tangible way. And so, second of all, I'd like you to hear the cameo appearance by Louie, our dog, who is over off to the side. And if you hear him, don't worry about him. He'll be quieting down soon. So Layla, let's talk about contact forms, right? Because everyone wants to get leads from their website. They want to get people coming to their website. They want to get conversions. But how do you do that, right? And I think one of the big things that people don't look at is their contact forms. What is the actual action that a user should take when they when you want them to actually contact you? And so why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you have a website, you're working with your whole team and you're figuring out what copy you want to write, and you discuss potentially which photos you want to use, but a part that's really overlooked is what the contact form should look like. And as a business owner, the most important part that you want to have from a person is their contact information, whether that be their email or their phone number or their name, so that you can look them up, and their company name. But what is interesting to see is that data actually reflects that how you ask those questions, when you ask those questions, in what order you ask those questions, affects the outcome of people actually filling it out. So the first thing that, I have three pieces of advice essentially that we're going to cover. The first thing is the questions that you ask really do matter. If for a business owner, you think outright, hey, if I ask for their company name, if I ask for their phone number, then they'll provide me all that. But what you have to understand is that the questions that you ask might also deter them from filling it out. So thinking really critically about what pieces of information are relevant for me to be able to have that first sale call. It may be the case that you're a consultant and you have to look at their website before you get on the phone with them. But if you are purely providing them with an ebook or some sort of research just to capture their email address, there's no need to ask for a company at that point. It's not part of your due diligence before you contact them to research their business. So one less question. Yeah,
definitely. And it's one of those things that, like, the less you ask for, right, the more they're likely to fill it out, right?
Yeah.
And so you really need to think about what it is that's the most critical piece of information and narrow it down to that.
Yeah, and to put some data behind the study, we saw that there's an average 5% dip in the conversion rate if you add a phone number. And they did a study with Expedia, since they're a booking platform for hotels and flights. And so they said that as soon as they changed their contact form to have the phone number optional, that made the biggest difference for them. It increased their conversion rate from 42 to 80%.
Wow,
that's a lot.
So it doubled it.
It doubled it.
Wow, that's
I mean,
incredible.
as a consumer, I can say that I'm less likely to enter my phone number. Like, if I get to a point where they're like, oh, you need my phone, yeah, I'm not going to give that to you.
Right.
So just me as a consumer, I could see where that would be. But if it's optional, if you're someone who likes to get that phone call, it would be a good place to, if that's what your demographic is too.
Yeah, definitely. And so the second thing is how many questions you ask, which you also already introduced. But what we're seeing is that if you have a 4-field form, that you actually are able to generate 160% more form submissions, and you are able to increase your conversion rate over 120%.
Wow.
So purely cutting it down, really looking at how many questions there are right now. If you're over that 4, that's really where you start to lose, and lots of people start to drop off.
Okay. And you know, with that number, right? You know, the number 4. Because I've seen, like, how many times have I been on a website and I go, you know, contact form, and it's like, you know, 10, 12 things, and it's like the first thing I do is, nope, I'm gone, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, like, absolutely, you've got 4, or, you know, somewhere around there. It just seems like a very reasonable, like, easy amount of things to fill out.
Yeah, and you also have to, this is more of a side note, but you also have to understand, you know, what questions you're asking.
Yeah.
Because if you are asking them to fill out information that's readily available and they're aware of, they'll be more likely to fill it out. I saw a finance client, he put together a form, and the questions they were asking were all financial terms that people would really have to dig in and find out, what is my profit and loss amount. And so if your 4 questions are extremely difficult, there's also a chance that those questions might not get answered and people drop off. And so the last thing is when to ask these questions. So some creative ways to build your form is by having multiple forms and letting the person know, hey, this is your step 1 of 2. And so that way you allow yourself the opportunity to structure the questions in such a way that it doesn't seem as difficult.
Does it get them like invested too, where it's like, oh, these are questions that are relevant to me, and okay, I want to answer these, and then the next page it's like, oh, now you just want my email. Okay, well, I've gone this far, and I've done that, so I know how that feels, and so it really gets somebody invested in what that process is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've also seen things where, you know, people have, you know, they're like, oh, you know, we're going to give you this certain amount of information, but we need to know this first, and we need to know that, and it's just kind of like general stuff that you're kind of like filling out, and then it's like, okay, the last thing you need to do before you can get this information is give us your email and phone number, right? And it feels a little bit like they're manipulating me. Like, I kind of know they're doing it already, but like at the same time, like I've already spent like a bit of time here, like I've invested some time into it, and so it's like, oh, okay, whatever, I can unsubscribe, or like, you know, there's like options to get out of it, you know, after the fact. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that brings up a whole other dynamic is if you do ask them questions that you may never actually use. So this goes against my first point, but with all of this, it's a testing process. It's finding where your sweet spot is for your customers. But if you choose to set up your form as a 2-step, and the first step asks them things like, let's say you're a real estate agent and you're asking them for their zip code, you're asking them for their number of beds, a number of bath. Essentially, you don't care about all of that, but it allows these people to feel like, okay, what is on the other side of this contact form is going to really help me. This person already knows exactly where I'm at. They know what kind of home I'm looking for. You may even ask them such a question as like, do you want wood floors? And they believe that you have a plethora of options of wood floors for them. So of course they're going to leave behind their contact information at that point.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting dynamic.
So if you know, there are business owners out there and they've got a website, what should they be looking at as far as their contact form? Like, where should they go from here? What do you recommend?
So there's a little bit of a technical aspect to it, but especially if you've watched a couple of live videos ago, we talked about how to install Google Analytics and which metrics to track. And so I think for figuring out if your contact form is working or not, the 2 numbers you really have to look at are the number of sessions, how many people came to your website and came to that page and saw that form, and then on the other side of things, how many people filled out that form. And so as you tweak things and you choose to add a question or remove a question or change up how you ask or frame a question, then go back in and analyze, did the number of people who see it, did a higher percentage of them end up actually filling it out? And that's really where all my data came from. It's people, it's marketers testing their different options and drawing these conclusions. But at the end of the day, you know, you're your own business owner, and looking at your own website is the part how you learn.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and that's the conversion rate that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
You're looking at the number of people that visit the website or visit the contact form, and then the number of people that actually fill out that form, right?
Exactly.
And so if you're looking at like where should you be, like every business is different, but if you're driving ads to a specific landing page or to your website in hopes that they contact you, if it's less than 1%, you really should be making some significant changes. And so we've certainly come across businesses that they've said, oh, we've gotten 1,500 clicks or whatever to our website, and we've got 2 people that filled out the form, which is a crazy small amount of people. They're like, I think it's working. It's like, okay, well, you should really be a much higher conversion rate than that, and there are some things that you can implement pretty easily that will bump that up pretty quickly. And a lot of those things have to do with the actual contact form, and it might seem like such a small thing, but it's really like the devil is in the details with this type of websites that want to actually convert. And it's just small things that can make a really big difference.
And as far as a sale goes, that right there puts you on a warm lead, where you've got someone who sought you out first. You're not just cold calling them or sending them newsletters that they maybe didn't realize they were signed up for. So if you can get that to work, that conversion to happen, you've got a warm lead to start with. They've already sought out your services.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great stuff, Layla. Thank you. Thank you very much. So moving on here, so Facebook, right? Facebook, there's so many different features to it, so many different ways that you can use it. And one of those features is events, Facebook events. Now, it's pretty straightforward. Let's say you're a business that puts on events. Maybe you are selling tickets to a concert or some kind of, festival or something like that. Obviously, Facebook events are super easy and make a lot of sense to you. What if you don't put on events, right? What if you're a business that you're like, I don't throw festivals, I don't have concerts. Can I still use the events feature? And the answer is?
Yes, you can.
Yes,
There's
you can.
lots of ways.
Yes. Tell us more. How
Sure,
do you do that?
I will.
Yeah.
So events, I'm sure we've all gotten invited to events at some point in our lives. Facebook it's a very robust system. It's gotten a lot bigger. And it's calendar based. It is going to be, notifications are going to come through your phone through Facebook. So they don't have to worry about whether the people who are invited to said event are going to remember it on their own personal calendar. So these are just some of the small benefits of the way that this works. But there's a few ways that we're going to talk about of how you can use them, even though you may not be an event-based business. You may not throw them yourselves. One of the first ways that you can do that is webinar registrations. So if you're someone who you do trainings, you do informational Q&As with potential clients. You've got Facebook fans who are already there. They've already liked your page, and then you can say, you know what? We're going to have a webinar this day. Set up an event. Invite the people that, you can choose who goes into that of who you invite. It's not just like a blanket to anybody. And so webinars are a great way to do this. This lets them know that they can register for it. This keeps them updated on what's going to be talked about. And that's another great benefit of the events in general, is that there is an entire thread on events. You can have conversations. People can ask questions there of, hey, how much is it? How long is it going to take? What are you expecting? And you can engage with them. And since you're already working with Facebook fans of your page, you're going to have a higher engagement anyway. You're not just working with like cold leads of people who might not be interested. So again, like I said, it's going to remind them the day of or right before, or if something starts right away. I know I get them when people invite me to things and I go, oh yeah, this thing is happening. Hey, cool, maybe I'll check it out. We've even used them for Facebook Live events where you can say, hey, this event is happening and we're going to remind you, right when it's going on. So that's one of the really cool ways for us to use Facebook events. It's a really easy one, especially if you have information to share to your clients. Another way to do this is using your own team members and inviting them to company events through Facebook. What this does is, again, like I said, it'll share updates to whoever is invited. But if you have employees, for example, who are going to be at whatever company event there is, they can then take their own pictures, share it to the page, and that gives you a lot of content that you can use later. So you can imagine that, if we as a company, as KWSM goes to, we throw some sort of event, we do something that we're invited to. Super Bowl, exactly. Seriously, something as simple as Super Bowl. And then what we do is we just share, okay, what are we all doing at the Super Bowl? What are you eating? And you can share it back. It creates this really cool, almost like a group of people who are engaged in the same event.
Yeah. No, that is great, because then you could, like you were saying, people could post pictures there, right? And then you as a company, right, can get those pictures, and instead of having to stalk people on their personal social media accounts, you can actually just get those directly from the event, and it makes it easy. And then those are the ones, obviously, that people are most comfortable sharing, right? And so that's good. I like that.
I mean, I've even seen people do threads where because you could post a comment on there and say, hey, in this thread, share your best picture of whatever happened, if it's a Halloween party, if it's some sort of holiday or whatnot, and then people are going to engage because we like to share pictures. That's why we have so much social media.
And I think another added benefit of doing it with your internal team is that it moves you away from the email inbox. And a lot of companies, when they are hosting a party or some sort of get-together for their team, it's to establish culture. It's to bring you closer together with the people that you work with. And so if it's just a line item at the end of a lengthy email about all these business-related topics, it really sucks the life out of the event. And it almost makes it like another thing you have to do. Mm-hmm. But if you really isolate it and you allow it to be its own Facebook group, and you create hype, and you do a poll of, hey, what food is everybody bringing? It adds this enthusiasm, and right. People will be more excited about going to the company party.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. It's a great
really
idea.
Cool.
Great idea.
So the last one is, and this one is I think really useful for any businesses, is showcasing conferences you're attending. So if you're going to a conference, whether it be, an example would be like if we were going to a digital summit, we would say KWSM is going to be at this event. We can then track and let people know you can find us here. We can put updates on that page, of that event page, that says, hey, you can find us at this booth, or you can find us at this panel. Maybe we're going to be visiting and talking to people, or hey, we're just standing at this corner in this conference room, like just let us know and we'll come talk to you. It's really that simple, and people like finding each other at these public events where people are going and engaging with each other. And this can be any kind of conference. It can be whether it's something that's related to your business specifically, or maybe you're attending as a guest or as a sponsor to one of your clients, and letting other people know, because that's a great way to engage with someone who may not be a current client but could potentially be a client for you. Yeah. And something that's really neat about this is it really utilizes the existence of events to leverage more engagement in those public spaces, gets you more face-to-face time, and lets them know, reminders and updates, and be like, hey, we're going to see you there, and get really excited about that conference itself. They're going to love it too.
Well, and it also is a cool kind of a guerrilla marketing tactic, because if people are at the event, they can, if they're looking to check in somewhere, they're going to see in their check-ins, oh, KWSM at this particular event, and then they might look at that and they'll see that your page is attached to the event, and maybe your updates, like you're saying, hey, we're going to be at this place or on this panel or whatever it is. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with it, and I think that's a really creative way to use a Facebook event.
Yeah, and if you've ever looked through events without just looking at the ones that you're specifically invited to, if you go and want to see what events are happening near me, it'll pop up in there if you're within the vicinity, if you're someone who's invited to similar events, or if someone is going to it. So there's a lot of networking that happens when it comes to events, and that's with any of these uses. So really the takeaway for this is that Facebook events is a great way to separate out something really cool that you're doing, even if you're not throwing the event, from getting lost in emails, getting lost in newsletters. A lot of us have, events that are coming up on our website, and sometimes people don't visit the website every day, but most of us have Facebook notifications. So that's a pretty easy way to get it in front of someone with the least amount of resistance, I think, is what I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, that's really great information, and we would love to hear from you guys. Are you guys using events in a creative way? If so, we just post it on this video in the comments, and we just would love to see how you guys are using it, because there's a lot of different ways you can use it, and it doesn't just have to be for a concert or for something that's very a specific event. There's a lot of different ways you can use it, and so we encourage you guys to get out there and get creative and share with us what you guys are doing with it. So now, moving on here, there's been some interesting things that have happened in the news this week. And one of the things that's been really cool is on Instagram, right? Instagram has stories, right? Now that's not new, right? No, they've been doing stories for a long time.
Yeah. They're good.
But what they're doing is they're rolling out the ability for you to be able to link to a specific story from somewhere else, right? So instead of it simply living and the only way to access that story is by being, following someone or a brand and seeing their story while you're on the app, you can now actually, like as a company, take that link, share it maybe on your Facebook page, you can share it in a newsletter, you can share it in a blog, and people can click on it and go back and view your story. So this is like a really pretty interesting feature in my opinion, because it's expanding the reach of this story. And it used to just be this really in-app experience, and now they're starting to expand on it. Like, Layla, what do you think about that?
I think it's smart. Instagram has had, out of all the channels that are possible for social media, Instagram has been that one that's sort of refused to let people link away. And this is an even more power play where they say, okay, all your other links and all your other social media that you're doing, link back to the stories and get people back to Instagram. And at the end of the day, it is something that businesses really want. You had to have 5,000 followers for you to be able to link to anywhere else from your stories, and so now at least the ability to send people to your stories, it allows you to share your audiences across your platform. And if you are a business who has a great following on Facebook and you're trying to move people over, this is that moment that you can start tying them all together. So I think it's an exciting one that we'll see businesses using a lot in 2019.
Yeah, I agree. And not coincidentally, they're also rolling out additional advertising that you can do on Instagram stories.
I think looking at the inception of stories in the first place is when you track it back to what Snapchat started with, which was here's this 30-second clip and it goes away forever after 24 hours. We are going very different. It's really creating a catalog of short videos or pictures that literally tell a story from second to second. Sometimes, you'll see someone who has 10 that are just like lined up one right after another, and saying, no, these can be utilized as literally a catalog of video that can talk about your business. I mean, it started out as personal, but now businesses are seeing, no, this tells a brand story too. This tells us, even talking about events, this tells us what we're doing in our day. And you can, in a newsletter, recap that later and say, hey, here's a link to our story and this is what we did. And now you can see it in real time with someone who has a real smiling face, and it gives some personality, I think is really what we're going to see. Yeah,
absolutely. So keep an eye out for that. I think as we start seeing that rolling out, we'll start seeing brands use that more, start seeing businesses use it more, and it'll be interesting to see. I think there's going to be some really creative ways to use that. So another thing related to Instagram is that Facebook, right? So Facebook owns Instagram. Most people know that. Facebook also owns WhatsApp, right? Which is a very popular app as well. Less popular in the US as it is, in foreign countries, definitely more over there. But what Facebook is doing is they're going to start combining the messaging features of all three of those apps into one platform, okay? So, how does this work? It means if you have Facebook and you're in the Facebook app, you can message someone to their Instagram profile, right? Or their WhatsApp profile, and there's going to be like all this crossover. Okay. Now this is a super interesting move to me, right? To me, it's a little weird, right?
I think it's weird
because I have like some distinct audiences. I actually don't use WhatsApp, surprise, surprise, but I use Facebook and I use Instagram, and I have distinct audiences between the two of those. By audiences, I mean the people I'm connected to, right? And so for them to be crossover, it seems like a little like, I don't want that because I kind of have them split in a certain way. What do you guys think about it?
I mean, since I am from the Netherlands, I have extensive family and people that are all using WhatsApp. And WhatsApp for them is their text messaging platform. So it really, I think, for them is going to feel like Facebook is sort of stepping into their territory, because this is what we in America primarily see as iMessage, and now all of a sudden you have your friend now messaging you the things from Instagram into your private text messaging. That's where you talk to your grandma. So to have those worlds collide, I agree with you. It's going to be probably a huge learning curve. I think if anything, it's a great transformation for the older generation who doesn't enjoy having many different platforms and may prefer having it all in one. But I think for the younger generation, it's going there's going to be some blowback.
Yeah.
The idea that now your memes aren't centralized to Instagram and you have to combine it all into one chat, I think will create for a lot of distractions too. I know it's very common for people in Europe to actually use WhatsApp for homework and group classes, and to roll that in with your social media. I wonder how that's even going to work in the classroom.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I don't know, what do you think?
My only experience with WhatsApp is kind of the same thing. As I'm not from the Netherlands, I'm from the US, but I have international friends, and so that was the way of getting around like data issues and spending more money back when we cared about how many text messages you sent out and how much they cost.
Right, yeah.
That aged me a little bit. So, and that's what WhatsApp did, is it was like, oh, no, you can just do it through the internet, and then you can just get your messaging out there, and then iMessage started up, and or Facebook Messenger started up, and you were seeing it with your friends that you were connected to. But I don't know, you're right, I have totally different conversations with my friends through Facebook Messenger versus my personal text messages, and WhatsApp, I understand, has a totally different dynamic there. And also for me, like when I use Instagram, I'm not an influencer by any means, and so I go there to scroll through some stuff, see what's going on. I do not get direct messages from anybody on Instagram. And so for me it might be a wash, but it would be a little bit weird to engage differently. For example, there's people who run businesses, they run personal businesses, like an example I can give is fiber arts, people who like knit, crochet, they make things like that. They get a lot of business through there, and then to have that integrating with maybe their personal Facebook messages might feel a little messy.
Yeah, it might, definitely. And like, I think, again, we go back to why would they be making these changes? And to me, I think the only reason that they're doing this is for money, right?
Probably.
Because you can advertise within the Messenger app, right? The Facebook Messenger app. And so they're starting to test that and roll that out into larger things. So in my opinion, this is their ability to expand that advertising and get into those private messages. And so instead of having a completely private message, you're going to see potentially some ads and stuff going on there, which, again, like to your point, it would probably seem really invasive, right, to a personal messaging thing. And so how people respond to that, I think, will determine whether or not this is something that they move forward with, and how fast they roll it out, right? It might be a slow roll.
I'm wondering if anybody will step into the WhatsApp space and try and be like, nope, we're private from that. It's okay.
Yeah.
I know some of them exist, but curious to see if that'll happen.
Well, looking at it from a business's perspective, I know that in the last year or so, WhatsApp has been trying to push businesses to join and sort of have their daily newsletter and what they would usually send in an email to now actually send in a WhatsApp subscription. So I think this whole move to colliding all these platforms is really social media's way of becoming a bigger part of your life, which I think at the end of the day, yes, the money and the advertising is nice, but what they really need is for these eyeballs. They need to have that screen time with you. And if you are now coming to social media not only to talk to your friends, but also to learn your news, to watch your videos, everything becomes one central place. They have you hooked. You're on there for hours a day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see what the future holds. I'm sure many, many more exciting things. Buffer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Buffer, but Buffer is a great tool that is used for, you can use it for scheduling, you can use it for a whole variety of things. And they do a ton of research into how people use social media. And they released a report recently on just some really interesting statistics about what's going on in social media marketing, things like that. And so I just wanted to share with you guys a few things that they're seeing. And this is really interesting. So the first one says that Instagram stories, right? 61% of businesses are planning to invest more in Instagram story ads this year. Okay, so that goes along with the what we were just talking about, right? Yeah. That you can link to Instagram stories. Well, Instagram brands are starting to use those stories more and more for advertising. So not just advertising, in the flow and the feed there, but also in the actual stories. So people can do that. So 61% of businesses are planning to invest more in their story ads this year. Along the same lines of that is Instagram TV, right? Mm-hmm. Which is what they launched recently. hasn't been as much of a success as they wanted it to be, right?
Doesn't really surprise me.
And doesn't surprise me either. And so they're saying in this report, it's saying that Facebook for businesses, Facebook is actually the best place that the business have seen to post their videos to, even more so than YouTube, right? And so from a business point of view, that's where businesses are focusing their efforts as far as where they're getting the most bang for their buck when they're posting their videos, okay? And so now this is sort of what's happening right now. We're always looking towards the future, right? What do you guys think about IGTV? Do you think that's going to catch on? Do you think people are going to start utilizing it more? Or
I never thought it was going to happen.
No.
It felt too long form for what the Instagram audience is. It's really for the general user. You're kind of scrolling through and then you're clicking through your friends' stories and you can watch them and skip them. And IGTV requires you to sit there and really watch something. And I don't think most of us are doing that. It just doesn't seem like the right location, I guess, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
I think Instagram TV, IGTV, was created to compete against YouTube, and the fact that YouTube has a subscriber base, and I know that there is a subscriber base out there. I'm personally not one of them, but I do understand the idea of if you do like a certain personality and they release a TV show, that you take the time, you plan it out to have a certain window of time where you're going to watch it. And we've already moved away from standard TV to streaming. I think this is one more jump we have to make, and I do think it's possible that it will gain popularity. It just has to be rolled out with the right audience, and the right people have to be on the TV for it to work.
I agree 100% with that, which is that right now we're seeing a lot of people who are on YouTube who are also doing IGTV. But in my opinion, that's never, people who are used to watching and doing things on YouTube, they're going to continue to do it on YouTube. So in my opinion, I think there needs to be someone who only does IGTV, so you can only get content from there, or maybe a handful of people, in order for the user base to actually start transitioning over there and get used to that experience. Because I think once that happens, whether it's someone famous or someone that gets famous on IGTV and they're only doing it there, I think that's when you're really going to start seeing more users and more people actually getting used to it. Because otherwise, I agree with you. It's people are used to YouTube. They're used to watching things on Facebook. On Instagram, they're used to 60 seconds or less, or the stories are 10 seconds or less. So I think that it's interesting, but I don't know if it's going to work.
It's almost like they need the audience somewhere between YouTube and Vine. Back when Vine was the 6 seconds, and that was huge, and people were subscribing to Viners. It was like a massive thing, and a bunch of them now have popular podcasts. Like, that's what they do now. But it's almost like the newest generation of social media users are going to have to come in there and use it in their own unique way to make it not a competitor, but its own piece.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I agree. And to wrap this up for today, this is like the most shocking stat of the report. And I say this because we talk about this every week, right? and we think this is super important. But 49%, half of businesses, only 49% of them have developed a social media plan. What?
I don't know how that's
That
possible.
means less than half of businesses don't have a plan on social media. Now, one thing that we always talk about with social media, right, is if you're going to post to social media, I want you guys to think about the number of followers that you have, right? And let's say it's 300, right? On social media, that doesn't seem like a whole lot of people. But let's think about it a different way. If you were in front of a room and there were 300 people in an audience, do you think that you would prepare what you would say?
Maybe a little.
Maybe a little? So even with perceived few numbers, right? Social media is a platform that can get to a lot of people very quickly, right? So if you do not have a social media plan, then you need to get one, and you need to get one before you post anything else. Because if you're just going up there and winging it, inevitably something is going to go wrong, and we don't want that to happen to you. So if we encourage you to have a plan, sit down, think about what your plan is, think about what type of content you want, think about the calendar as far as the types of posts, when you're going to post events, things that you want to promote, and get that on paper and then start working it from there. And if you need help with that, shameless plug, we can help with that too. Of course, that's what we do. It's a big piece of what we do. So, anything else you guys want to add?
I mean, we might as well tell them about the boot camp.
Absolutely. So, this Friday, we are continuing on with our social media bootcamp classes. So this week is Pinterest and Instagram. So we talked about Instagram a lot today. If you want to learn about Instagram and you're in Orange County, we encourage you to check out our website. Go to the workshops tab on our website, and we've got a class on Instagram and Pinterest this Friday. Next Friday, LinkedIn. The Friday after that is YouTube. So we encourage you all to check it out. Thank you, Layla.
You're welcome.
Anything else you'd like to add, Alexandra?
Just that if it's 2019, new steps, get that schedule put together for your social media. It's going to help you. You will see a difference as long as you stay consistent.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like our Facebook page. We also post these videos to YouTube, so you can go over and subscribe to our YouTube channel, see past episodes really easily there. Thank you very much for joining us. Please join us next week, Tuesday, 12:30 Pacific time. And until then, I hope you have a great week.